In today's video, I'm going to be showing some of the hardest things I've had to do over the last couple months. I'm also going to be discussing some of the massive changes that are coming to my basement aquariums. I'm going to be hinting at some big future projects, so there's a lot to get to in this video, so let's get into it. So this is just a quick overview of all my aquariums so that the rest of the video makes sense. I have 4 big display tanks, a 180 and a 150 right here on the corner. I have a 135 with African cichlids, a 90-gallon Discus tank, and then in the room behind these aquariums I have a bit of a fish room that's been a work in progress. I have a 33-gallon with Sheld Dwellers, a 40-gallon tank, a 75-gallon tank that has had electric blue acaras growing out, and that's a main subject of this video. I have a 10-gallon quarantine tank with a pistogramma that are also waiting for a new tank. I have 2 20-gallon quarantine tanks that currently have Cuban cichlids, also ready for their upcoming tank. So there are a ton of things happening very soon in my basement, and I can't wait to show them, and I'll definitely hint at some of them in today's video. If you are a channel member, you likely know what I'm talking about with some of the big future projects coming, but if you'd like to hear more about that, you could definitely join the membership channel. We'd really appreciate it. So starting here with my big 180-gallon aquarium, which has South American cichlids and a bala shark, the only non-cichlid in this tank. The big guy, the big tiger Oscar, is doing great. He runs the show, but I also have 1 Central American cichlid, the Nicaraguan, and it's been out of place, and it also digs huge pits in my sand, so those are 2 reasons it's gotta go. I'm gonna be moving him out of this tank in a couple weeks, and you're gonna see that in a future video. But once he's gone, this tank will just be South American cichlids again. And the other quick update in this tank are the new walrus cichlids. They have been doing great in here. They've really settled in, and as expected, they've been great tank mates with my Oscar. So let's move on to the 150. So for the 150 and the 135 behind me, just really quick updates because there's not a whole lot changing with them. The 150 has been doing great. It's a perfectly balanced aquarium right now with the plants. The Geophagus finni look amazing, and this tank has the electric blue acara parents of the grow outs that I have in the 75-gallon tank that we'll talk about in just a second. For the 135, this tank has been doing amazing. It is African cichlids with peacocks and haps. I love how they swim back and forth. They're so active and colorful. The biggest update recently on this tank was that I did upgrade the lighting system. I installed the hanging kit mount for the aqua illumination blades, and this just looks incredible. I really think it puts it over the top. Makes it stand out from a lot of my other tanks down here. And then moving on to my 90-gallon Discus tank, this has a few updates to share. The main one is that I did lose one of my Discus a couple months ago, the albino leopard. It was kind of a bummer. I got it probably 10 months ago, but it never really settled into my tank. I went through a couple rounds of Paracleanse and Expel P, but neither seemed to clear out its system and get it eating again. I thought it was an internal parasite, but just never settled in, and unfortunately I lost it. But there are 5 other Discus in here that have been doing really well, and the Rummy Nose has been doing great, as well as the Cories. So I'm likely going to be adding a few things to this tank. I might be adding more Rummy Nose Tetras to this school, some more Corydoras to that school, and then I already ordered some plants for this tank that I think will do really well with the elevated temperatures. A comment that I got recently on a video pointed me in the right direction, and the plan for this tank is to really have it grow in to a nice planted tank. Right now it looks okay, but it's not the grand vision that I had for it, so can't wait to show updates. That'll probably be coming next week. But you might see next to this Discus tank there is a big open space, but big things to come for this area, as well as another tank. So that's kind of the reveal. I have 2 tanks coming very soon.
Oh my sweet Jesus.
That's rad.
They're actually down here in my basement already that I can't show you, but the members, again, have already seen them. But now moving into the fish room, where it's kind of the main subject of the video today, I have a 33-gallon Sheld Dweller tank that I set up about 3 years ago, and it's been thriving. I started with 8 Neolamprologus multifasciatus Sheld Dwellers, and I knew that they are prolific breeders, especially if you provide the right environment for them, and they did not disappoint. They immediately bred in the shells. I think it was 2 weeks after having them, and they have continued to grow and thrive in this tank. It's been really cool to watch. And then maybe a year after it running, I did give a small group to a friend, but since that point they've continued to breed and it's really filled in this tank, and it's almost looked overcrowded to me. There are some adults that kind of hang at the top because they don't really have territory, and there are even more babies that I've seen throughout the tank. There are probably 3 different areas in the shells where I've seen probably 5 to 7 more fry, so it did make sense to potentially get a group out of this tank and move them elsewhere. I didn't really know what to do until a subscriber reached out at the perfect moment, asked if I had any available. I packaged about 7 of them up and gave it to him, knowing that he's not only here for local pickup, but he showed me a picture of his tank and it looked amazing, so I knew they were going to a good home, and that was really the key factor in me giving them away. It was definitely bittersweet, but it does open up room for the babies to grow in this tank, and it provides that group that I gave away just more room to grow and start a brand new colony in a subscriber's tank, so that's just very cool. But on the other wall of my fish room, I have the 75 gallon that has had my electric blue acara army.
Electric Avenue.
There's been about 60 to 80 of these fry that have grown up over the year, and it's been awesome to watch the process of them grow into their own. They're about 2 to 3 inches, and they've just looked beautiful since day one, and I knew it wasn't practical to keep them long term, plus I had plans for the 75 gallon tank before the breeding even happened. I wasn't trying to breed these fish, it just happened and I grew them up, but it was time to finally make a change. Below that is a 10 gallon tank with 2 apistogramma that also need to go in their permanent home. And then on the right, I have 2 20-gallon tanks with Cuban cichlids. This pair is going to be going into the 75-gallon tank with a really nice scape, and this needs to happen pretty soon as they're pretty big and I feel like they need to go into their permanent home right now. But one of the really cool projects coming up is for this fish room is this whole wall with the 75, the 10, and the 220s. I want to adjust the whole layout. I want to make a double stand so that I can put these on a level surface and also open up room for maybe another 75 gallon tank or a 40 gallon breeder, maybe even a couple small tanks for future fries, so that if I do have electric blue acara or Sheld Dweller or even Gymnogeophagus fry, I do have a spot to move them, and it's just a much more functional area. So really big updates and movement happening with all these tanks and new tanks to come in this fish room.
Go back this way, go over here, click and go that way. Boom, that way.
The first step of this process was to reduce the stocking of my electric blue acara. So over the past few months, I have been dwindling the stock slowly based on subscribers that have DM'd us on Instagram and asked for electric blue acara if they were available for local pickup. We just bagged them up, and I probably given away maybe 20 to 30 of them to subscribers in the area, which again was very cool to provide them with a forever home and to kind of populate the Chicagoland area with some quality fish. So I was a bit of a proud parent in that regard, but it was also really cool to meet some of you and to start giving them away. But I had about 50 of them, and it was time that I finally started making some moves. Now it is time to give away a bigger wave of the electric blue acara, and as I've mentioned in other videos, I'm not going to be giving away all of the electric blue acaras. I do want to keep a small group for a different tank setup later on, so that I do have a next generation of these guys. So it is bittersweet, but it isn't really practical to be keeping 50 plus electric blue acaras in one tank long term. And as you can see here, I have the python going into the back fish room, and I'm draining the tank a little bit so it makes it a little easier to catch, and we are going to show where these guys are going in just a second. So I scooped out about 25 electric blue acara. I put them in a bucket. It took forever to catch these guys. I did a water change and removed a core so that I was able to do that, but eventually got them in the bucket. But then it was time to take them to my local fish store. So I drove these guys to my local fish store beyond the reef in Schaumburg, Illinois, and if you're in the area, I would definitely recommend going there. They'll likely have them ready to go for purchase this weekend, and they'll likely go pretty quickly because if I'm tooting my own horn, these fish are quality and they look awesome. So it would be really cool if followers in the area made it to this fish store, purchased them, and gave them quality long-term aquariums. This was really the whole point. I was also able to exchange these fish for a few things coming up for those future projects that I hinted at. Picked up some various types of Anubias, as well as roughly 10 gallons of RODI water. And if you're wondering what this is going to be used for, stay tuned.
And for our next trick,
So here's the Sheld Dweller tank after that group was removed, and as you can see, it still looks pretty packed. There's plenty of them still in here, so they'll be able to continue breeding and continue expanding their colony. And again, I might be able to give some more away to subscribers. And then my electric blue acara, the stocking has dwindled. I think there's about 21 or 22 left, and I will continue giving them away until I have a small group that will eventually go into one of my tanks in the future. I'll definitely have a group of at least 5, maybe 10 of them that I keep long term. So there's probably 3 big projects, including new tanks, that are all happening simultaneously. And I just had to get this process rolling, so I'm glad I was able to get that done and move on to the next phase of my basement aquarium builds. I have a grand vision of how this is all going to come together, and I will say it's just one of the most exciting times for Cichlid Bros, and that's not even counting what's going on with my brothers Alec and Quinn. Alec's Basement Aquariums and Quinn's Classroom Aquariums has some really cool stuff coming very soon. So this is the perfect time to not only be a subscriber, but also join the membership channel so you get to see some behind the scenes. And one of the things that the members have already seen is this guy. I'm not even going to show it for too long, but that is a quick hint at something I've been wanting to do for a while, which is get back into something that you guys have all requested, and that's going to be coming very soon. Probably next week whenever I reveal that. So I'll probably be showing that next week as well. Probably 3 or 4 videos coming next week, so look out for those. Can't wait to show you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.